Verse 20, and Jacob stole away unknown to Laban the Syrian, and that he did not tell him that he intended to flee. And so, verse 21, so he fled with all that he had. He arose and crossed the river and headed toward the mountains of Gilead. Now, the mountains of Gilead were about 300 miles away from Haran, and Jacob is going to make it to the mountains of Gilead in about 10 days. With all these kids, all the livestock, all of his stuff, he's covering a lot of ground quickly. He is on the move. This is not some kind of leisurely trip back to the promised land. I mean, he is pushing his family because he's afraid. And he's trying to get away from Laban. And so verse 22, and Laban was told on the third day that Jacob had fled. Remember, Laban had put 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob. And so it takes 3 days for news to make it to Laban that Jacob has split. And then he took his brethren with him and pursued him for 7 days' journey, and he overtook him in the mountains of Gilead. But God had come to Laban the Syrian in a dream by night and said to him, be careful that you speak to Jacob neither good nor bad. And so Laban overtook Jacob, he caught up with him. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the mountains, and Laban with his brethren pitched in the mountains of Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, now watch what he says here, what have you done that you have stolen away unknown to me, carried away my daughters like captives, taken with the sword? Why did you flee away secretly and steal away from me and not tell me? For I might have sent you away with joy and songs, with timbrel and harp. And you did not allow me to kiss my sons and my daughters, speaking of his grandkids. Now you have done foolishly in so doing. It is in my power to do you harm, but the God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, be careful that you speak to Jacob neither good nor bad. And now you have surely gone, because you greatly long for your father's house. But why did you steal my gods? Now Laban is a first-class manipulator. And this is what a manipulator will do. When a manipulator loses their control over a person, they will use any kind of tactic they can to regain control over that person. And Laban really pulls out all the stops here. First, he begins with a rebuke in verse 26. He says, what have you done? Why have you stolen away unknown to me, carried away my daughters like captives, taken away, with the sword? He rebukes him here. And then he switches to guilt. He said, why did you leave the way you did? I would have thrown you a party. I didn't give you a proper send-off. I would have had musicians and a big celebration. And you didn't let me kiss my grandkids and my daughters goodbye. Why'd you do that? And so now he's laying on the guilt trip here. This is what a manipulator will do. And then he uses fear and intimidation. And he says, it is in my power to do you harm. He's trying to intimidate him now. Again, if a manipulator thinks they are losing their ability to manipulate you, they will just kind of go down the list of ways to manipulate, trying to find something that works to regain their control. And so he's trying everything here. The rebuke, the guilt, the intimidation, nothing's working. And the thing that angered Laban the most is in verse 30, that someone stole his household gods. Again, they could be used to make a claim to Laban's property. That's why he's concerned about them. So verse 31, again, Jacob doesn't know about it. Jacob answered and said to Laban, because I was afraid, for I said, perhaps you would take your daughters from me by force. With whomever you find your gods, do not let him live. In the presence of our brethren, identify what I have of yours and take it with you. For Jacob didn't know that Rachel had stolen them. And Laban went into Jacob's tent and into Leah's tent and into the two maids' tents, but he did not find them. So he's ransacking their tents. And then he went out of Leah's tent and entered Rachel's tent. Now Rachel had taken the household idols and put them in the camel's saddle and sat on them. And Laban searched all about the tent but did not find them. And she said to her father, let it not displease my lord that I cannot rise before you, for the manner of woman is with me. And he searched but did not find the household idols. Now, verse 36. Then Jacob was angry and rebuked Laban. And Jacob answered and said to Laban, what is my trespass? What is my sin that you have so hotly pursued me? Although you have searched all my things, what part of your household things have you found? Set it here before my brethren and your brethren, that they may judge between us both. Jacob has had this anger pent up in him for 20 years. And now it just all kind of comes flowing out here. The dam breaks, and it's all coming out for him now after 20 years of putting up with Laban. And he goes on in verse 38, these 20 years I have been with you. Your ewes and your female goats have not miscarried their young. I have not eaten the rams of your flock. That which was torn by beasts I did not bring to you. I bore the loss of it. You required it from my hand, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. Anything that was stolen, I was responsible for. And there I was. And the day the drought consumed me, and the frost by night, and my sleep departed from my eyes. Thus I have been in your house 20 years. I have served you 14 years for your 2 daughters, and 6 years for your flock. And you have changed my wages 10 times. Unless the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had been with me, surely now you would have sent me away empty-handed. God has seen my affliction and the labor of my hands and rebuked you last night. Man, I bet you Jacob rehearsed this speech 1,000 times over the 20 years, out there in that field in the drought and heat and cold by night. I wondered one of these days I'm going to let him have it. Tell him what I really think. And now he lets him have it. And he's able to see and know that it's only because of God that I'm leaving with anything. It's only because of God's hand upon my life that I've got anything. That's true for us.